So yesterday, Greg Abbott signed SB4 into law, which makes crossing the U.S.-Mexico border between ports of entry into Texas a state crime. Now, it's not to be confused with the SB4 that was passed earlier this year, which mimics Florida's SB17 law, which increases a minimum sentence from 2 years to 10 years for smuggling migrants into the state or operating a stash house. The newer SB4, which was signed into law yesterday, makes crossing the U.S.-Mexico border between ports of entry a Class B misdemeanor and carries a punishment of up to 6 months in jail. Also, repeat offenders could face a second-degree felony, which carries a punishment of 2 to 20 years in jail. Now, what's dumb about this law, and this is similar to what happened when Greg Abbott was trying to prosecute migrants for being on private property, is that once you charge a migrant with a crime, they can't be deported. And if you sentence them to prison, then the taxpayer is caring for them on the taxpayer's dime. So it doesn't, from a xenophobic perspective and a right-wing perspective, it is really nonsensical. Now, the wording in the law, just like SB 17 in Florida, is intentional. They essentially copied and pasted federal law in order to justify the legislation. However, that's unlikely to work because of a key element in the Constitution called the Supremacy Clause. The Constitution is also relatively clear on federal responsibility for immigration and how states don't have any rights in this department. The Constitution states that the immigration is to be administered by Congress and Congress only. The Supremacy Clause itself clearly states that the U.S. Constitution, obviously, and federal law supersede any state laws or codes, meaning that federal law sits above state law. Now, there have been Supreme Court cases dating back more than 100 years, and there was 2 this year alone that affirm the Constitution, the Supremacy Clause, and federal law trumping state law. The question now becomes, who is going to challenge the law, and how far are they willing to take it? There's already rumors circulating that this law is most certainly going to be challenged in federal court. However, will it be the Department of Justice, or are we going to have to rely on private institutions? And again, how far are they willing to take it? Another bill that Abbott signed into law yesterday was SB 3, and not many people are talking about it, but SB 3 provides $1.54 billion in state money to continue the construction of barriers, basically the border wall, along Texas's 1,200-mile border with Mexico. That money is going to be added to the $1.5 billion that's already out in contracts that the state has issued since September of 2021. It's worth noting that only 14 miles of wall have been built since Greg Abbott took office. Another key element to SB 4 that not many people are talking about is that it allows law enforcement to essentially racially profile Latinos. So if you have a Latino surname like mine, Dominguez, or anything else, they can pull you over and question you about your legal status in the country. So all you Latinos that support this, I'm talking about you Tejanos down there in South Texas, remember this post when cops are pulling you over and starting to ask you to prove you're a resident of the United States.